Hi, welcome to the Dump Dive channel. Today we are going to cover the most important topic of Spring Boot, which is Resilience4j or circuit breaker. Okay, so first we have to understand what is this circuit breaker and where we use this in real world. So to understand this, let's take an example. So we all do UPI transactions, right? So what happens that sometimes it's failed and it's keep on loading and comes back with a message that your transaction is has been failed, right? And then sometime we also see that there are it's before doing even the transaction we can see that there are some issue with the bank, right? So let's suppose there is some bank issue, then we will not be able to do our transaction. So what happens, let's take an example. Let's suppose you are a customer, okay, and as soon as you do your transaction, okay, maybe you are paying to someone and it's keep on loading, right? And then it failed. Okay, so your application, the Spring application is in currently in closed state, which is best stage to be when everything goes and working. Now as soon as there are, let's suppose we have said five customers failed, then only we can move it to open state. So let's suppose you have tried 5 times, or maybe you or maybe other customer from anywhere in the world have tried accessing the bank server, and the transaction is failing, right? So if 5 transactions get failed, then the Spring Boot application move it to open state. Now what happens, without doing the payment or starting the payment, you will directly see there is some error in the bank, right? And then you will not proceed with the payment, right? So basically it moves from closed state to open state, right? And then after a few minutes or seconds you will see that the Spring Boot application again start accepting the request, and it will accept few requests like 10 requests, and it will determine, okay, that this calls are now we are getting correct response from the bank servers. Then it will again go to closed state, else from half of an it will again go to open state, right? So we will see with this with an example. So to show you this, I have set up a mock server. So it's just not doing anything, it's just returning you the a simple message, okay? But this is running on server 8081. Okay, so let me start this application. Yeah, so I have started this mock server in 8081 port. Now move to our main application where we have implemented the circuit breaker. Yeah, so this is the application. First of all, you have to make sure that you have proper dependency in your form. So you should have first of all this Spring Cloud circuit breaker Resilience4j, or you can either use direct io.github group id dependency as well, which provide you Resilience4j same as this. Okay, and the next important dependency is AOP, because this without this AOP you will not be able to do your circuit breaker, because uh, this works with annotations. Okay, and for that we require AOP. Okay, and the other important dependency is actuator, because we also want to see the states, right? If how many calls are failed and what is the state of the application, so we can see it from this actuator. So just make sure that you will be having one, two, and this three. Okay, this way I'm basically, you can keep it somewhere else. Let's, okay, so we need this three dependency. Now let's understand my application. So my application is not having much things, it's just a very simple application. It's just exposing one endpoint, and I have a customer service. So if you see, I have in the line number 13, I have given this at the rate circuit breaker annotations. So here you have to make sure that whenever you are using the circuit breaker, then the method should be public. Okay, but the underlying methods can be private. Even the fallback method can be private. Okay, as you see, I have made these two methods as private, right? But this should be public. Next thing that which you have to take care, that the fallback method, right? If you see this fallback method, right? So this fallback method should have the same return type as your circuit breaker method, right? Now let's see. So here I have provided name as fetch from provider, right? So in the application dot properties I have given the configurations. Here if you see, the same fetch from provider name I have to give here if we want to use circuit breaker, else it will not work for you. So here what, there are few configuration I will go through. So this number of calls, basically minimum number of calls. So as soon as your application starts, it will it will check the threshold and everything, and move to the other state, like from close to open. If there are minimum number of calls is 5, if 5, let's suppose you have done 5 calls and 4 calls failed, then it will not move to open state unless you have made 5 calls. Let's suppose you made a 5 calls, then that means now it is start calculating. So in the 5 calls, if your 5 calls are failed, then threshold, it crossed the threshold, right? Your cross, you have set, we are setting the threshold as 50, and as of now, as 5 calls failed, then the threshold is already 100, so it will change its state, right? But not on the fourth, on the fifth call. Now understand this, what is the sliding window. So it is basically capturing the last 10 requests to calculate the threshold, basically. And you can set the type, so your type can be count based, time based, but most commonly used is count based. Now as I said, uh, this is automatic transition from open to half open enable. So let's suppose your application move, there are some failure started happening, your application move from closed state to open state, right? Now we have to define like how many, how much, after how many times, or after how many minutes you want to move it to back to half open, right? So that it again gets few requests, and then accordingly it will decide from the next call. Let's suppose uh, it moves to half open, and then in half open it will get, it will allow 3 more requests, and if 3 requests are uh, okay, and then it will move to closed. If again 3 calls are failing, it will move to open state. Okay, so the same settings we are defining here. This is the something like on how many seconds you want the, in you want the threads, or you want the application to wait in the open state, right? So let's try to run this one and understand. Okay, so our Mac mock server and this application both are running. Okay, so just make sure that this is my endpoint. If you see, I'm getting a hi, how are you, correct response. If you see here, the buffered calls is 1, failed calls is 0, because we are getting correct response from our mock servers, right? Buffered calls goes to 2. Now what I will do, I will just close this mock server. I will turn off this mock server. Now I will make the same request again. If you see, it's saying please try again. I will do one more. It will say please try again, and if you and it is still in the closed state. Now currently failure threshold is 50, so if I do another request, it will grows more than that, right? And it will change its state from closed to open. Now if you see here, it's moved its state from close to open, because the minimum number of calls buffered which we have set is 5, and fails call is 3, which is 60%, right? So more than threshold, and it's open state. Now It will wait for 1 minute in open state because we have set this 60 second here, right? So it will wait for 60 second in open state and then again move to half open, right? And it accepts again 3 requests, and if everything goes well, it will go to closed state, else it will go to open state back. So uh, let's wait for a few seconds. Yeah, now you can see it is in half open state. Okay, so if you see again here, I will do one. It's taking some time, right? So it will take 3 times. It will take some time because it is in half open state and accepting the request. But as soon as I do a fourth request, if you see, it's very fast, right? Because now it is in open state. So it again went to open state, right? So this is how we can play with the circuit breaker configs. Okay, and yeah, this is how we can implement this. Thanks, I hope you guys understand. Thanks for watching.